Welcome to the Juniper podcast, where we chat with the most fascinating people in the pet space and dive into ways to keep our pets happy, healthy, and enriched. If you're a little obsessed with your pets like we are, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Juniper podcast. I'm Haley Young, Juniper editor and podcast co-host here for my first ever solo miniature episode of this podcast. What we try to do with these minis is have shortened versions of our typical long-form interviews. Let's be honest, they have often gone long in the past because especially when we get a fellow dog or cat lover on video with us, we just can talk about our animals forever. But we try to keep them brief and just address some core topics so that it's an easy listen, only 10 to 15 minutes of your time, and you can get a sense for what we care about at Juniper, and hopefully we can talk about some things that relate to your own life with your own dog. Today, I want to put the spotlight on my Australian cattle dog, Scout, and talk about her fulfillment, her enrichment needs, and how that's changed as she's gotten older. Juniper founder Allison's dog is younger, and our social media employee Ebony's dog is also younger, and so sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit in a unique place on the Juniper staff, having a dog who is really entering her senior years. Scout is somewhere around 9, and I adopted her when she was already an adult, so we aren't entirely sure how old she is. But she's really slowing down, and that affects the things that she enjoys to do, the things that she's capable of doing in the first place, and then what our life looks like as her humans to make sure that she's getting the fulfillment that she needs. So, talking about enrichment, my personal definition of enrichment is basically just biological fulfillment, which can sound like a little bit of a technical, complex term, but really what that is to me is just ways of allowing our dogs to behave naturally, fulfilling their biological impulses. So I think about this at the basic needs level. So Scout needs to eat, she needs to drink, she needs to be able to use the bathroom. Those are the most basic things that I must provide her as the person who's in charge of her in our modern human world. And then I also think about it, at a broader scale of what does she need as a canine? What does she need specifically as a domestic dog? Because, domestic dogs are different from wolves and coyotes and foxes. What does she need as an individual? So not all domestic dogs have the same preferences, right? And there are breed differences. And then even within those breeds, there are a lot of just individual preferences, things that some dogs get more enjoyment out of than others. So over the years with her, I've tried to work on coming up with a sort of fulfillment ranking. And I talked about this a little in one of my last recordings with Ebony when we were doing a different mini episode. So I try to think about what things most fulfill Scout, what things make her heart sing. And I kind of try to think about myself the same way sometimes when, we're short on time. What things bring us the most joy and allow us to feel satisfied and fulfilled so that we have the capacity to handle everything that we need to handle in our daily lives. So for Scout, one of those for a long time now has been tug of war. She really loves the fight aspect of play. So, we're still cooperating in the game in the sense that we all understand that this is a game, and Tug has actually provided some really excellent training opportunities for us as well. So when I say the fight aspect of play, I don't mean that we're actually fighting with each other, but in the context of the game, we are competing with each other. So I think about it like my partner Sean played volleyball when he was in school. And so that's a game where the game itself is competitive. You're competing against the other team, but you cooperate in the sense that you all decide to show up at the court and follow certain rules and enjoy the game together. So that's what Tug with Scout is like. It's like we're playing a competitive game and we're on different teams, but, still cooperating in the larger context of creating play. It's helped her feel a lot more confident. It is physically fulfilling. She gets tired. She's got some really nice shoulder muscles for a dog who is 9-ish years old. I'm quite proud of that. Another one for her has been variations of fetch. And this one has had to change more than Tug as she gets older because fetch can be really hard on our dog's joints. There are different ways that we can play the game to mitigate that risk. I actually just wrote a really long blog about this and interviewed multiple professional trainers and vets to kind of put together some insights on this because the idea of is fetch bad has really blown up on dog social media lately. And so that's one for Scout where she really does love the chase aspect of play. And selfishly, I like fetch better than tug sometimes because it puts less pressure on me, both physically and then also mentally, emotionally. Scout is a very, very sensitive dog. And there have been a lot of times in my journey with her where I've been feeling overwhelmed, I've been feeling nervous, and she picks up on that. And it's a lot easier to just toss the ball in this very casual, cooperative way than it is to engage in a really rowdy game of tug. Going back to the volleyball analogy that I used with tug, in fetch, it's like Scout is on my team. So the game is fully cooperative. Like we're just working together. So nowadays our fetch looks like a lot of shorter throws, shorter distances. I try to do a really good job of warming her up first by going on walks and things like that so that her muscles aren't completely cold. Pay attention to how she's moving, how her gait is. Definitely when you envision a classic game of fetch, we are not just doing the constant, let's throw it as far as we can. There's a lot more thought going into it. And I'm sure that will continue to change as she gets older because it's the reality her body can take less. Then there are the things that she's enjoyed pretty much the whole time we've had her that she is still completely able to enjoy as she gets older. And these are some of my favorites because they're these little pockets of happiness, frankly, for both her and for me. And I don't have to face the idea that we might be losing our opportunities to enjoy them anytime soon. One of those is food searches. She really loves using her nose, and we worked hard on this. She's not always been great at using her nose. So one of my forever reminders here that enrichment, fulfillment, the activities that we do with our dogs, we don't have to write them off at the very beginning if they aren't an immediate hit. Just like people, dogs can learn things over time, feel better at things over time. And often I've seen anecdotally with Scout that confidence correlates a lot with how excited she is about an activity. So once she got better at sniffing treats out that we hid in the house, or, we'd pour some broth in a little dish with her kibble and hide it in nooks and crannies so that she could sniff it out. The better she got at it, the more fun she had with it. And then you can up the ante and make it more challenging. So that's really great. I hope, will be able to use her nose for the whole rest of her life. She still loves just like snuffling food out of a snuffle mat or grass or a towel. And again, this is another really great activity that takes so little physical effort. Like all she has to do is be able to stand and walk slowly. So, even when she's like 15, and she's going to be 15, she's going to live forever. Even when she is 15, she'll be able to sniff something out of the grass.
Have you joined Juniper yet? Our free guides, articles, and newsletters are packed with tips to keep your pets happy, healthy, and enriched. Sign up today at juniperpet.co.
Some other things that fulfill her that I think we tend not to think of as enrichment activities per se, and that's why I prefaced this with my definition of enrichment being really broad and focusing just on fulfillment overall. Things like social fulfillment. Like Scout is a very social dog with me and my partner. She's not very social with other people. She's quite an introvert. She's also a herding breed. She's a cattle dog. We bred her ancestors to be wary of strangers. So all of that makes a lot of sense. And she's a bit fearful as an individual. She does not come from a very stable background that would set her up for the best chance of success. But, that said, she's really, really social with me and my partner. And one of her favorite things is just to be in the same environment as us. And this is something that as she gets older, we can really continue to lean into because there are so many ways to include her in our daily life that aren't super physically demanding and that also aren't super mentally and emotionally demanding. Because sometimes we think so much about just like tiring our dogs out when it comes to fulfillment and enrichment. And really, it's about this overall feeling of satisfaction. And so, if you think about yourself, like if you've just done a really hard workout and you're super sore the next day, that might actually affect some of your mental and emotional capacity to handle things like frustration because, you're not at 100% physically. So I think about that element a lot as Scout gets older, just like knowing that she gets sore more quickly. She's even more sensitive to touch, especially from people who aren't me and Sean, all of those variables. But she loves being with us. So there are a ton of ways we can go about this. We live full time in our converted van. So she kind of always gets to be with us. Like even if we're driving out to dinner or something, she can be with us riding in her crate on the way there. And then like we can come right back out to her. It's really easy to take her to things like restaurant patios. We can drive to a park and like not really have to walk if we don't want to. We can just sit on a blanket and read and, sort of love up on her a little bit. She likes to just watch the world go by. So it's enriching just to park in different locations and let her observe this. This is one of my favorite ways to socialize a puppy that I think comes full circle really well as our dogs get older. Like this idea that you can just sit in your car or near your car in a ton of different locations and allow them to take in information. Just kind of like with ourselves, again, the analogies to humans, they can be dangerous. I will talk about anthropomorphism until the cows come home. But the analogies can also be really, really helpful just to give us that context of like things that bring us intrigue and fulfillment into our own lives and how that can also happen for our dogs. So I think a big takeaway for me as she has gotten older has been just to not narrow myself down into only a few things that we're able to share and enjoy together. Something I'm happy that I did when she was younger is focus on a lot of activities that we love. So like I never got caught up in like, oh, we have to walk this distance every day. Or like there are only 2 ways that I fulfill you. And it's like we go on runs and we play fetch, because as she got older, that would really put us in a bad spot of like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? So I think some really good advice is to just try to fulfill our dogs holistically and with a range of activities throughout their entire lives. And then as they get older and that becomes more important, we're set up a little bit better. So it's hard to watch her get older. It's selfishly sometimes nice in the sense that she just needs less from us. She sleeps more than she did when she was younger. She tires more easily. But it's really important to me that we continue trying to honor who she is and what she needs, even as her physical body gets a little bit less strong. So we're still playing tug. I'm going to tug with her until she tells me she absolutely cannot tug anymore. She loves it. It brings her so much joy. Different types of meal enrichment, and really that social fulfillment. I think that when approached with intention in a way that really makes us feel like we're having a meaningful social interaction, that can do so many wonders for people and pets alike. Thanks for sticking with me while I got to ramble a little bit about my dog. I have so many emotions about her getting older, and I'm so lucky to still be getting to share life with her. I've lived with her for going on 6.5 years now, which really blows my mind. And I hope that you and your own dog, or cats, we're also cat people here, hope that you are also having a great week and that you find some ways to bring each other joy.
Thanks for listening to the Juniper podcast. Don't forget to sign up at juniperpet.co for guides, articles, and newsletters that make pet parenting easier. And if you're a pet brand looking for creative content that connects, drop us a line at juniperpet.co. We'll see you next time.